When I was 14, I went to a Boy Scout camp, Camp Pellissippi in East Tennessee. And I never thought about a flying saucer or anything like that, never heard of it really. And I was on the side of a mountain one night about 9 o'clock by myself, and I happened to look up at the sky. And this thing looked like two saucers together, and it was huge. It's about the half the size of a football field, and had lights around the upper half and the lower half. And it went right over me, maybe 40 yards over my head, moving real slow. I mean, just barely moving. And I looked at it, I said, what kind of plane is that? Well, it's a round plane is what it is. And that plane doesn't have any engines. And maybe the engines went out, I don't know. It wasn't making any noise. So I watched it, and it went slowly, and there's a mountain to my left. I thought, that thing's gonna crash into that mountain.
The experience I'm going to talk about today is something that I believe other people need to be made aware of, because I would say in about February of 2020, I had an out-of-body experience in which myself and I believe another whole group of individuals were taken into what essentially I believe to be an underground base, possibly a fourth density energetic construct that could even serve as like a simulation realm, almost kind of like a video game type of a scenario. But the basic idea was that we were taken as this group of individuals into this lab, and I can describe the lab. The lab had glass floors. In fact, the entire building, I believe, was glass of some sort. And we walked through this sort of metal detector that I believe was not actually a metal detector. I think it was a doorway into another element of the facility or whatever it was. Immediately upon going through, it appeared to be a metal detector. We were in this lab in which there was this large cylindrical object coming down from the ceiling, and underneath it was like a pedestal. On the sides of it were these sort of offshooting kind of arms or capsule-like elements that I don't know if they close up or if they moved, but what happened was we sat down in this chair, or went in the center of this sort of like device, you could say, and you were asked to place a VR headset over the body, or rather over your head. And upon entering that, there's like some sort of like a digital interface, and that digital interface would allow the user to move through the consciousness or the eyes. What I believe they were showing was actually the eyes of either certain individuals or what was described in the demonstration, any point in space or time. And they actually gave it a name. They called it the world's most dangerous game. It was very, very, very interesting. But as soon as you put the headset over your head, there's like a grid that opens up.
I've been channeling for about 2.5 years, and about 1.5 years ago, I was lying in my bed, and usually when I lie down at night, I will get downloads and energy will shake my body, and it's just how energy is getting used to my body complex, my cellular complex. Well, one night I was laying in bed, and I felt almost like a beam hit my head and start to mechanically buzz, bzzz, vibrating my head.
Came the day of inauguration, and like I said, I don't have a TV at home, but I worked in a nursing home where all of the patients had TVs in their rooms. And I was wheeling a patient back to the room. I'm getting chills talking. I get chills. Every time I tell this story, I get goosebumps. Anyway, I wheeled her into her room, and I thought, this is an historic moment. I am going to just stand here for a few minutes and watch history being made. So I did. I stood there and I saw to-be President Trump and Melania on those steps. It was a very gray day. They were just standing there like statues. And I got a download. And I don't get these big, I get intuition. I'm an artist, you know, and I get these intuitive things, but this was like, pow. So I was standing there just watching, just curious, no opinion, and all of a sudden came this overwhelming feeling and knowledge and instructions.
I would say it was about maybe 4 years ago, and I was going through a lot of trauma, and I was like, you know what, I think I need to get baptized. I was very Christian, religious back then. I wasn't spiritual yet, but I was, you know, saying I needed to do something to help cleanse myself, so I said I'm gonna be baptized. So the night before that I was going to be baptized, I actually was laying in my bed and I was like getting ready to fall asleep, and I heard something outside of my window, and it was like coming, you know, outside the window. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's something outside my window that's going to come and approach me. So when this being came into my room, and it was a lower vibrational being, and he had somehow convinced me that he was going to take me out of the sight of God. I don't know how he convinced me that he did that, but he did. Took me to like the void almost, where it was, I can't even like explain. It was such like a lower vibrational place. It had like no feelings, in like no good feelings. Okay, so the next day, I was like, okay, what is happening? Why did that happen to me?
I was down in my basement, and it was late at night, and I wanted just to turn off the TV. I was ready to go to bed. It was a dark room, and as I was turning off the TV, I felt a presence directly right behind me, and it literally, that whole side of my body, all the hairs went up, goosebumps, but it wasn't any good feeling. It was very alarming. I could almost feel the panic kind of setting in. And I was kind of stuck in the motion of turning off the TV, just standing there. And I started just immediately, okay, just kind of calm yourself down. And I could feel it right next to me. So once I started kind of calming myself down, I kind of went inside a little bit, and they're just like, well, turn around and face it. So I turned around where I thought it was, and my whole body was just complete goosebumps, hair spraying, and I just put my arms around it, and I just sent it like love. I kind of connected with Source, and I wanted it to feel that it belonged. It had a sense of belonging. It could feel the love and joy of everything around us if it wanted to. And I just kind of held my hands there and just kept trying to push a lot of love through it. And as I was doing that in my head, I could almost see, it wasn't a human scream, but it was just like a screech that this thing made. And all of a sudden, all my hair went down, everything, it just disappeared. But I could kind of see where it went. And my basement kind of has a little tail end where our laundry machine is. And I could feel that it went over there. And I was surprised that this actually kind of worked well, showing the love to this thing. So I was like, well, I'm not done. I'm gonna go chase it.
My name is Christina. How I got awakened is about a decade ago. I had a dream that I was a black woman and I was being murdered by a white man. And as I transitioned into spirit, I felt so much love for this man. Like, I immediately started praying for him, and it just let me, that dream is what was like the catalyst to let me start going back into like the spiritual world.
I woke up in the middle of the night, and for whatever reason, I looked out my window and saw a blue bird face out my bedroom window. It had a human head, but it had a beak for a nose, and its eyes were like a ruby pink color, and they kind of glue. I don't know if you go to Revelations, you see God's eyes glow like fire, and it kind of glue like a fire. But I found out 2 days later that was a blue avian out my bedroom window.
So the very first night we were there, I just met a group of friends. We basically were there for the night watch, or sky watch, and we had fell asleep or maybe lost some time somewhere along the way. And then a cat came up and rubbed across my leg and woke me up, and 4 of us converged on one spot. And when that happened, the mountain sent off a flare of basically an energy burst, and we all got hit with that. And it was like the most energetic, loving, just amazing blast. It was just pure light and love, and it was amazing. So we were so energized by this, we all decided we're going to go out to the Palladian Circle and meditate, which we did. And the minute we started doing that, literally Sasquatch activity picked up everywhere. We were hearing chattering, noises, vocalizing. This went on for literally 2 hours probably.
My name is Abby Lynn, and the story that I actually want to share with people, it's not something that was profound or changed something in my life, but I feel it was a message that needs to be shared. There's always a reason why beings come to you and give you something, and I'm feeling really drawn during this camp disclosure that it's something that people need to know about. I was coming out of the shower actually, and it's really interesting because when certain multidimensional beings come to you, they set the stage for you really, so they remove the fear. So when I actually saw this being, there was complete calmness and there wasn't fear. But I walked out of the shower and there was a mantis being standing there, and he was patiently waiting and kind of twiddling his thumbs, and finally I addressed him, very casual, what's up? And he said, "We're always in the wrong place at the wrong time." I said, "Can you please clarify that for me? What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, our race are the mechanics." And he gave me an image of very earthly auto mechanic building our cars, because that's our mode of transportation. And he said, we have the technology to build the crafts, and we build the motion devices that make them go, and we aren't discriminatory who we build them for. And when people come to us and they ask us to build a craft, we build it. We don't project any of our feelings or views on those. And he said, but so often people align us with being malevolent because we've been spotted with the reptilians and with the greys, and there's this perception of us that we are malevolent, but that is not the case. And his emotions became saddened, and he shared with me the story.
Hello, my name is Todd Hossman, and I've been in the spiritual community awakening for about 6 years now. I woke up in South America when I was teaching a class. I was looking for information for my students, and I was watching videos, and my hand just went over to the right and clicked on a video, and it was the hidden history of Earth from Spirit Science and the story of Thoth, the Atlantean, and I couldn't do anything else that day but watch that movie. And I showed it to some of my students, and they kind of got blown open too. And then I got back to the United States, was watching different people, was paying attention to who was interviewing who, and I really resonated with James at East City Ranch, and he said something profound. He said, you can read all my books, you can listen to all my videos, you can watch all my shows, but if you come to my ranch and have your own experience, that's something that no one can take away from you. And as soon as that happened, I got goosebumps all over my body, and I said, okay, I'm going to East City. That was the 2016, was the first time that I went to East City. First night, blown away. I wanted to see a ship. That's my only goal, was to go see a ship, and I thought it would be metal. Boy, was it not metal. It was an energy ship.
Last night we did see a ship, and it was very, very brilliant. It had lots of lights on it. It stood stationary for a good 5 minutes, and I felt very different and changed afterwards. Like I felt like I was definitely receiving, even before I saw it, I felt an energy come over me, and I feel like it had something to do with the ship, and it caused me to look up. At the same time, everyone else seemed to be looking up in our little group right there. And so we all saw that, and we just waited for it. We were trying to get other people's attention, we weren't able to, and eventually it slowly drifted away with a very soft sound. It didn't have, I couldn't hear any kind of motor or engine or anything like that on it. So that was a wonderful experience that we just all shared here at Camp Disclosure.
Did. And
last night.
I'm on a property about an hour and a half north of here. I run a nonprofit animal sanctuary, and there's a lot of light ships out at my place. A lot of light ships at Oshana's. She's about 45 minutes from me. So this area has really become a real hot spot. One of the encounters, experiences that I had, I was outside with my family, and it came in, and I was connecting with it.
I had my first contact with the Pleiadians in 1996. I was a room moderator for Barbara Marciniak, and at the end of that session I left and was driving, and they came in and said, we would like for you to disseminate information for us, much like Barbara Marciniak. And I said, I would love to, and I'm very honored, but I'm part of another experiment. and I would love to. And they said, very well, we understand, and they left. And so Carl and I were meditating, and I said, well, let's go see if we can go up in one of the motherships, because, and this only happened about 4 months ago. I had been having dreams of being in a classroom while I was asleep. I would grab my backpack, the bell rang. I remember running down the hall, jumping on the elevator, and woke up in my bed, and I was breathing very fast. Like I had just, run down the hall. And that has happened more than once. But Carl and I are very experienced meditators. We've been in the same meditation school for over 40 years. And Maha Avatar Babaji is our teacher. We have a direct lineage with him through Yogananda, not affiliated with SRF. So we went into meditation, protected our physical forms with our light bodies, moved into our developed light bodies, went upstream through the fourth, fifth, and into the sixth dimension. We went up, straight up, in an elevator type motion, and the doors opened and we stepped onto a ship.
Hi, my name is Jace Kalesa. I'm the main stage host here at Camp D 2020. I went through my initial awakening back in, I would say, around 2013, 2014, when I started university in aerospace engineering. And at that point, I was pretty much on the verge of being atheist spiritually. And the US education system is really indoctrinating into scientific atheism and then full-on atheism. And so that's the route I was headed. And in the aerospace field, in our academics, I was really turned off by the amount of intense military application and destructive warfare applications for aerospace, like making missiles and stuff, and not having any kind of authority over what those are actually being used on, and if people's lives were being taken without our consent. And that really rubbed me the wrong way and started to get me kind of jaded about that industry. And then one of our professors, his name was Bruce Wright. He was essentially the father of the F-22 fighter jet, amongst many other projects at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. And if you don't know, Skunk Works is the advanced aerospace division at Lockheed Martin. And so he was one of the top project managers on aircraft there. And so he had multiple models on his desk that were from the projects that he managed. So he had an F-22 and an F-117 and a bunch of other stuff. And 5 of his models were black rocks. And he explained to the class that they were symbolic of black projects that he had worked on in the 70s and 80s that were still classified today. And that's what really started getting my gears turning about these black space programs that have been around for, now we know, 70 plus years.
So my craziest UFO experience, or I would actually call this more of a paranormal experience, because I've seen what I believe were backwards engineered craft from our government. I'm not really sure, some triangular craft before. I've seen that quite a bit, but this experience in particular to me is my first most memorable experience. I was out in the desert in Joshua Tree, and it was kind of getting towards nighttime, but it wasn't completely dark yet. It was more that dark bluish sort of feel. And this lime green ball of light just starts coming down from the sky. And for a second I thought it was a meteor. And so I'm talking to these people and they're facing me this way. So they had their backs to it. And I was about to be like, hey, look guys, it's a meteor, because there's a meteor shower going on. But then it came down closer and I realized it's this lime green ball of light. It's like a glowing ball of light about this big, probably the size of a basketball, maybe a beach ball. And it comes down 20 feet away from me and just hovers at my eye level. And it was almost like it wanted me to see it, because it stopped right at my eye level, and it was almost like it was sharing a moment with me, because it just hung there for a moment and then it just shot forward and disappeared. And I was just like, what was that?
But it didn't. It went over it and disappeared. So I ran back to all the other boys. Hey, I saw a flying saucer. You didn't see. anything. You saw a plane. I said, well, that plane was round, and that plane didn't have any engines, and that plane didn't make any noise. Now, I think it was a flying saucer. However, 2 days later, I went on an overnight camp trip to a little island, and I was in the canoe with the instructor, and we went around near where that mountain was on the other side of it, and there's an old house over there on the side of the hill. And I said, well, who lives over there? Oh, he said, oh, we can't, no, that's off limits, big fence around it. And he said, we can't go there, nobody's been there in years. And I thought, I know who lives there, that's where that saucer landed. Of course, nobody ever believed me, so that's the truth. I hadn't seen anything since, so I'm not crazy. Well, partially.
And it was basically like for individuals that have seen the director mode on like, say like a video game console, excuse me, it actually allows you to move like a camera through certain scenes, and they were able to pause an environment and to move through it, and then to activate the environment, to move inside some person's body. I think they moved inside another individual, but what I believe it was another form of looking glass technology that is about to be consumerized or is being made available on a larger level to the elitists, or what some people will call, you know, the cabal, if you want to go there. And I think it's important to mention it because other people are having those experiences. In years past, we've heard about groups of individuals that were taken to places like the LOC or whatever it was on the moon. You've heard some of those stories, and it may have been something like that. It may have been an experience that was just shown to me for my consciousness to understand that these things exist. But the interesting thing is I was amongst a group of people, and in that process, we were actually brought into that person that was sitting in the chair. It's not that I went and sat down on some kind of Montauk chairs. I was viewing it through someone else. And so I guess, yeah, that's just my experience, and that's what happened. And honestly, my whole mission is to bring forth the teaching, or to allow people to facilitate those kind of experiences for themselves, because I know I am not the only one. But yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Vibrating my head. And immediately when that happened, I just went to, I am love, I am light, 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 and it released and let me go. But that was very, very weird, and I didn't understand if it was a energetic thing, or if it was a mechanical thing, or if it was some sort of negative ET thing. But I'm pretty sure it was a negative ET thing, trying to influence or somehow get into my body-mind complex. So.
Surround the president, surround Donald Trump with protection and love and protection. And I went, what? You know, he's not going to be president for long. What? And I was totally shocked. I didn't tell anybody for quite some time because everybody I knew was upset about it. So when I finally came forth and told other people, they agreed that this had happened to them too. And finally I got really brave and put it on Facebook, the whole story. And I've done that twice, and both times I would have between 30 and 50 people come forth with the same thing. That they had gone to bed that night just not knowing what was going to happen, having some anxiety. They'd wake up in the morning and they felt like the whole world had changed after he won, because he won after, you know, it was late and people just gave up and went to bed. So many people told me their stories on Facebook, that they had the same experience, that it was a great weight lifted, that they felt so free and they knew the world was going to change for the better. So I'm all covered with goosebumps again. I love telling this story because it's just so uplifting, knowing that we have somebody there helping us out, helping us to be a better planet, to be better people. Just anyway, thank you for listening.
And then the next day, in the morning, I woke up and I was crying. But I was crying because I felt the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the Christ consciousness. And I'm like, my baptism is not even until 8 o'clock at night. So the whole day I'm just crying, bawling, you know, because I can feel all this energy around me. And then I get to the church and I'm there sitting down and I can still feel that love energy, and I'm the only one bawling my eyes out. And then I got baptized, and then I got out of the water and I walked out of the church, and it felt like I was floating, like if I was like weightless. And I also felt like a lot of like angels holding candles to me because of that baptism.
So I went back into the corner and I just ended up starting to do a clearing in the area, but I'm new at this, so I was kind of just opening up my mind to these possibilities, and the right things, the right words just started to kind of flow out. And all of a sudden, ever since then, the entire house and even the block has just been incredible feelings since then. No returns of that kind of energy, but so if you're ever feeling these things, it's just be in your center. You are so much more powerful than you can even imagine, and you can do so many things if you just believe in yourself.
That dream is what was like the catalyst to let me start going back into like the spiritual world and start seeking, you know, just other things. So that's what kind of woke me up and set me here.
And it's interesting because I woke up another night and saw light tunnels that haven't been opened since Atlantis that are being reopened up around this earth. They're beautiful golden tunnels of light. And the avian appeared underneath of that, the largest light tunnel that I saw that ran east to west. So I thought that was even more interesting. So I'm kind of just like putting all this stuff together, but it's now making a lot of sense through synchronicity and through God revealing these things to me. I've seen angels, I've seen demonic entities that look like the Grim Reaper that hijack people when they're on drugs and alcohol. I've seen ghosts, I've had dreams where I was in spaceships, Pleiadian spaceships. I was beamed up in a Pleiadian spaceship in a dream once. I just thought it was a dream. 2 days later, kind of like the Blue Avian experience, I was revealed that it was a Pleiadian spaceship. I ran across this guy, had been working with the Pleiadians for 15 years, goes to show actual pictures of the spaceship that would come for him. And it was identical to the one in my dream. He went on to say that they couldn't beam him up, and literally a golden light tunnel beam would come from the Pleiadian spaceship in my dream and beam me up, and they said that they couldn't beam him up unless he was in a high enough vibration of love. And in my dream I stood up and was like, I gotta send out my love and light, and I saw the spaceship and next thing you know, a golden beam was beaming me up, and I don't know, I didn't see no Pleiadians. That was the end of the dream, but I was revealed later that that was a Pleiadian spaceship.
And what was funny about that is, I didn't realize at the time what the energy was that hit us. It felt kind of feline. Of course, you go to the ranch, it's the lion beans, and I didn't even think about till later, but I'm a Leo, so it kind of falls in line. So the minute I get home, my wife and stepdaughter had a surprise for me. It was a cat. So they snuck a cat in when I was gone on me. So over the course of the next week or two, cats just started showing up everywhere in my house, like all outside hanging out. So one night I go on a second-story balcony, and I open the sliding door, and there's a cat on my balcony. Like, I don't know how he got up there. There's a huge cat, and like I saw it, it saw me, and we both jumped in two different directions. It was kind of funny. So I decided, well, this has got to be a sign that these cats are trying to communicate with me. So I went back out later, and the cat had literally crawled on the neighbor's roof to get to where I was. So I'm like, man, this cat knows how to get up and down. And I'm out there petting the cat, it's purring, and we're having a good time. So I decided to go to bed, and I'm thinking, man, I just had this great experience. The higher beings connected to me through this cat. Because I did actually make a connection. I do feel like there was contact, further contact through the animals, and it was just a pretty unique experience that's carried through. And ever since then, I've tried to be more higher conscious and treat people better and just be a better person, and that's where I'm at now.
They come to us, and most of us, we're forced to build these craft for them, and when we're done, we are then kidnapped and we become slaves on their ship because we know how to fix it. We know how to repair it. And that's why so often we're in the wrong place at the wrong time when we are being caught next to a reptilian or next to a gray. We just want you to know that we are often slaves on those ships and we have been kidnapped. And we just want everyone to know for our race that that is most often the case. So that's just one of the stories that I really wanted to share. I feel like that's something that the mantids want to be out there for everyone to know about.
In the first 5-10 minutes, we saw about 25 ships that came over, and every single one of them powered up, is what we say. They get very, very, very bright, and then they get dim, 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 and it just looks like a star moving through the sky, and it's beautiful. That opened me up, and I later went through the medicine wheel, and that was a very, very opening experience as well. There's different star families, different galaxies, and I felt the most connected to the Andromedans and the most connected to the Orions. And I did not know about the chakra system either, and when I was in the Andromedan pod, Andromedan area, I started to sway up high. And the reason I was doing that, I was feeling the energy intuitively. And the reason I swayed up high in my shoulders was because the Andromedans are tied to the heart chakra. When I got to the Orion pod, I swayed down low when I was doing the hula down low. And that's because they're tied to the root chakra. Did not know that at the time, found that out maybe a year later in a regression that I did. And also on a scale of like 1 to 10, when I was an Andromedan, it was actually like a 12. It was off the charts. I cried the big ugly tears, like like that. And it was just so intense, but it was love. It wasn't pain, it was love. And I felt the connection. And in the Orion, it was about a 7 or 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. So I've been going to a lot of different events over the last couple of years, since 2016. I met Tyler and Aaron from Journey to Truth in Hawaii at an event that we went to with Joan Ocean, and we were swimming with the dolphins. It was beautiful. And almost everybody there at that event in Hawaii had to move heaven and earth to get there. And all the people that showed up, it was, at that point, a friend told me later, it was the largest gathering of activated Lemurians on the planet at that time. So it was an amazing gathering. I met all these different people, and every time I go to a new event like this, like Camp Disclosure here in Flat Rock, North Carolina, I meet more people, the path opens up to me, and other things are put in my path and in my future, and it just keeps going. And I can't wait to see what this event is like next year.
They went inside. I was guided to go back outside, and I went and I sat, and I just connected in, and I just asked, who are you? And I heard, we're the Arcturians, and we're the Guardians, and it was so beautiful. So just like James was sharing last night, it's just really important to be in your heart space and to just know that they are benevolent and they are here. They're supporting the ascension of this planet, and I'm just so grateful for their beautiful presence. And the more that you are in your heart space and just open and asking, they're here.
Yeah, and if you just stay there, lots of magical things happen.
Absolutely.
That's a beautiful experience to have, and there are so many incredible experiences. There's a whole universe that is unfolding. When you're in the present moment. You really get to experience so much more and see a world that is very different than when you are seeing the world through your mind. So it's we spend a lot of time together just going out in nature and doing prayers and decrees and speak light language and star language, and I feel like a lot of that contributes to the great beings that are showing up on our planet, feeling that from us, because we're putting out that heart light. We're shining that heart light. And I think there's a definite response from the universe whenever we do that in all different ways.
Absolutely.
I saw some light ships at my place the other night too, and I actually didn't know that that's what I had been seeing out there many other times until Christina was over there and she was pointing that out to me, and I said, and I was like, wow, I've seen that, but I didn't know if my eyes were, playing a trick on me or something, because of the movement that it would do, and it would pop up and then it would go out and then it would make these geometric kind of shapes, and I'm just watching it and wondering, is that my eyes, or is there something out there, this light, this very bright light is is playing around out there. And so it's been really nice to realize that's what I've been seeing all this time. So I'm going to be way more, conscious about that when I see
and
it.
You can call them in.
Yeah, and communicate with
call
them.
them in. Our
Call them
star
in,
brothers and
communicate
sisters.
Yeah, they seem to be out there.
They are,
right?
of course they are, and they are here to help.
They're attracted
Your
to light-hearted
connect in.
people. And so that's, I feel like, is just keeping your heart going, open, shining brightly, and you'll just be in the magic, and you'll be in the mystical wonder of life, which is so beautiful.
Yeah. James mentioned that actually because I've been running a nonprofit animal sanctuary since 2001 in my heart space. He said they're really attracted to people who have these big hearts for animals.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I knew it was a mothership. It was huge. We were told later it was about 60 miles long and of Pleiadian in origin, since that's the race I'm most familiar and comfortable with. But about 20 beings met us, and they were different species, Andromedans, Pleiadians. They vibrate differently, they appear differently. And we asked if we could tour the ship. So we were on a moving walkway, much like in the airport. We moved past classrooms with teaching screens. We moved past things that looked like recreational areas, like a holodeck. And they didn't take us into the workings or the engines or the inner workings like that. We didn't know what powered the ships, didn't matter. That's not what we were interested in. But all of the beings that we were in contact with emanated a sweetness, a loving kindness. There is nothing to be afraid of. Yes, there are malevolent species out there. Humans are very precious in the universe. But the loving beings who want to help us evolve in consciousness, you can tell because you feel good when you're around them. You feel light, energized, inspired, but most of all loved and cared for. And we moved through the ship with this group of beings and they said we couldn't stay very long because vibratorily it would be detrimental to us, because even though we had raised our vibration as high as we knew how, still they carry a very high loving vibration. But I asked, can we go to the bridge before we leave? So of course we did. And it was like we were up there as fast as the speed of thought. And it was so beautiful to look out over the cosmos. I don't know the names of any of the constellations or any of the stars. I only know that I felt inspired, loved, and incredibly supported. And then they said, we have to go now. And probably our vibration, as high as we could get it, was a bit uncomfortable for them, because I know that when they appear to us, they have to lower their vibration enough to be seen, and they do that at sacrifice to themselves, but lovingly and willingly, and they're here to help us. So we left the bridge, we came back to where we had entered, and it was like a goodbye. But right before I left, I was in the back of the party because I really didn't want to leave. I was thinking, where can I stow away? And this beautiful woman, she felt beautiful, but I couldn't really see her. She had a hood and a robe, and she just kind of appeared before me, and I knelt down on one knee because I was just melted. And she knelt down too, and she took my face and she kissed me on the cheek and she said, goodbye, my dear. And I said, will I see you again? And she just smiled and she was gone. It felt very much like Mary Magdalene or Mother Mary. Their vibration is somewhat similar. And so we came back to the elevator. We came back down in our bodies. We were in my living room, in my meditation area. And we both remained just in quiet, loving, reverent silence for a while to process this experience in our bodies. But it still leaves me with a yearning for my home in the stars. And I wish that yearning for you too, because it's a most beautiful, life-affirming, and awe-inspiring experience.
But I was thinking, he has these black rocks. These are from the 70s, and yet this is still classified. Like, what's going on? We're learning about rocket technology, but now I'm learning that there's way more than rocket technology out there. And that's what really launched me into my spiritual awakening, because ultimately I went from diving into these rabbit holes on these black budget programs, which took me to the ET phenomena and its inclusion in that whole field, and how these technologies were essentially given to us at one point by non-human races, reverse engineered. And once I started learning about that, I was also going through really intense psychedelic initiations, experimenting with various psychedelics, and I was getting my third eye just blown open as I was learning about these ET programs. And then over the next 2 years, everything just kind of continued to gather and coalesce, and I started awakening much deeper on a spiritual level, and ended up dropping out of aerospace because it was making me completely miserable. And I realized that I didn't want anything to do with these corporations and groups who had been deceiving humanity for so long. And I saw so many of my friends who were totally asleep to what was going on, just mindlessly going and making instruments of warfare for companies that, they were just doing it for the paycheck. They didn't really have any vested interest emotionally in what these technologies were being used for. And so after dropping out, it really gave me that freedom to explore who I was and what I wanted, and really put me through a personal initiation of believing in myself and following my dreams and my passions of what actually brings me fulfillment, and not what the expectations of the matrix world around me were. And now I'm here today with tons of like-minded people all around me, including Tyler and Aaron, and it's just a fantastic experience. And it's so interesting to look back on a couple years ago and see how much has changed for not just me, but everybody that's here, and to hear everybody's personal stories of how far they've come since their initial awakening.
And I realized, so I was researching all over trying to figure out what this was, and I read that in the area, the Native Americans saw those all the time. They called them nature spirits. And after around that time, I started getting a lot about crop circles in my head. I started seeing a lot, and I started paying them on my shaman spirits. And so I started doing research on them. And I realized that there's actually tons of documentaries where people in England, where the crop circles happen, they actually film these balls of light coming down and forming the crop circles. So I think that had something to do with, it almost gave me a download or something. And they were saying that these balls of light, they're actually balls of plasma, and they could be sent from another planet of, some star system where they don't want to come here themselves, but they send these sort of plasma balls here to send us messages, which makes perfect sense. And if you look at what has been decoded from crop circles, it's really incredible stuff, and it's definitely something to look into. And I also noticed that after I had this experience, I realized in the past I'd had other experiences with this lime green ball of light in dreams and visions. Once I had this dream that this older lady, I'm in a dark forest at night, and it's misty or foggy. It's a creepy forest, and I was leaning against a rotten log, and this old lady comes out of the darkness, and she's hunched over like this, and she is holding something, and I realize it's a lantern with a lime green ball of light in it. And she reaches over and touches the center of my forehead, and I just felt shocked. I don't know what she said. She said something, I don't remember what it was, but as soon as I woke up, I knew I was back in my body, but I had sleep paralysis, so I couldn't move my eyelids or my fingers an inch, and I was freaking out. And I was literally paralyzed for 2 minutes, and as soon as I came out of it, I ran upstairs, because I was in my parents' basement at the time. I was in high school. So yeah, I just realized, and then I had this other experience one time, an out-of-body experience where I saw this lime green tree of life, and it showed how everyone was interconnected. So a lot of people have actually told me that must be a soul family and from another planet, and that's why it's come down to me so often. So